recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the DOJ's filing last week of a joint status report to Judge Sabra, 11 children were identified as having parents that were determined to be excluded from reunification under the judge's order due to criminality. A total of 18 children, as I understand, separated from their families could not be reunified because the parent was determined to be unfit or present a danger to the child. Mr. McHenry, is that accurate to your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am. The filing represents our position.
Thank you. So removing a child from their family in our domestic child welfare system requires trained child welfare agency staff and a determination by a judge that removal is in the child's best interest. It's a system that is designed to protect parents' rights and to protect the best interest of children. At the border, the decision to remove a child from their parent is made solely by U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents in the field. Ms. Asher, is that correct? Who makes the determination?
No, ma'am. I'm with ICE, so I will have to.
I'm sorry.
So we make that determination. Of course, we do utilize our Office of Chief Counsel. We work with the consulates of the countries.
So in medical or domestic child welfare settings, trained staff often use screening tools to identify abuse, neglect, and trafficking. I don't believe it's within your agency's purview to really make those decisions in the sense that you don't have the training. So I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, you guys are making the decisions without the proper training. So in the domestic child welfare setting, a determination of a child's best interest is made by a judge. What training do CBP agents have to inform a determination of a child's best interest?
My agents are trained starting at the Border Patrol Academy and dealing with children and the potential for fraudulent families or
fraudulent families, but are they trained in a child that might be neglected or abused, like a social worker? So CBP officers are also social workers?
No, ma'am. We are trained, though, throughout our career. We also follow the law, TVPRA, and various policies when it comes to separation.
What are the protocols that the agents follow in determining that parents pose a danger to their children?
If for one example, and the one that they are separated most often are for serious criminal
like, could you give me an example? When I went to the border, I was at McAllen and I talked to one of the CBP officers, and I asked, could you give me an example of a crime? And the officer recounted a parent who had been convicted of DUI. So, you know, in our nation's child welfare system, if a parent is deemed to have neglected or abused their child, a whole process takes place. No one person decides right there on the spot, you're ineligible to receive your child back. So that's what I'm trying to get at here, is that my concern is that we have one system that is in place to protect children, and your agency, which, you know, and again, this is an unfair burden on you, so I'm not faulting you, but based on what would you make that determination?
We do an initial determination, and we are not making a determination that they cannot be placed back together. But as an example, and I see this because I get the daily reports, quite often we have individuals that have convictions for domestic violence. And if I may explain a little further as well.
Yeah, very quickly. I'm only interrupting you because I'm running out of time.
I turn them over to ICE. ICE is not going to put somebody with that type of criminal conviction in a family residential center, so we have to make that separation.
Okay, so let me just finish. So tell me what happens to these children long term. So we have determined that a child cannot be reunited with their parent. What happens to that child long term if that child does not have family in the United States? Is that you, Commander White?
Yes, ma'am. For those children where there's been a final determination by ORR that the child can't safely be reunified, which is a child welfare decision. That's a different decision than the one that you were just discussing with Chief Provost. Okay. Very, very few children in the Mizell class were in that situation.
Right, but what happens?
Some of them had their cases reviewed by the ACLU and the judge. What happens is those children then become true UACs, and sponsors are sought for them as they are for all unaccompanied.
So are they eventually put up for adoption?
The UAC program does not put children up.
Okay, let me ask you one more question. If a parent is deported and they know where their child is in the United States. How do they get their child back?
We contact the parents, we provide their contact information, the
Right.
ACLU, the
So
ACLU.
so I'm in Guatemala, I know my child is in New York. How do I get my child back, and who incurs the expenses?
For children who were separated,
Right, and the parents were
we
deported.
transport the child at our expense for reunification. It's a partnership of ICE and HHS and the ACLU to effect and the government of the home country.
So the parents do not have to pay?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I yield back my time.